talking about the, in the example, for example, if you and I were to start something, even something as simple as you're going to run the office, I'm going to do sales, put that on paper?
I think that's important. You tend to get into businesses and people communicate differently. I've learned this. I may say something, but somebody's going to hear something else, and they're going to take a different perspective on it. If you put it down on paper, it's always hard to say, well, we said we were going to do this, and well, you know, we both signed off on this, and we had agreed that this was going to be our deal. It's a contract.
And that
way,
can be altered later.
You can always
tear it up and write another one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
What is the proper procedure for if you're a sole proprietor and then you become an LLC? What's the proper procedure for transferring assets and liabilities into that? Is it just a declarative document?
Well, yes, yes to some extent. If you've got liabilities, that's a little bit trickier. Let's say that you get a lot of this out here. You got a guy that's got 50 trucks and he's working out in the oil field. And he decides, you know what, I'm going to put these 50 trucks in my company, in the entity, because I want to shield them and all of that. Well, the one consideration you have to have is the bank, if you've got a loan against those trucks, the bank's not going to necessarily release you individually from that debt. And in some cases, they may even loan the money to the corporation. But before they sign off on that loan or before they hand out that check, they're going to get you personally or whoever's a member or a partner of that company to come in and sign a personal guarantee.
Right.
They want somebody responsible for that, and I understand that. That's just a no-brainer. But they usually, like you said, through some kind of declaration or anything like that, some kind of document simply showing we're transferring all of the assets to the company. And you usually have a meeting for that. Whether you do it some kind of telephone call in lieu of a meeting, like I said, exchange emails, say we're having a meeting today, we have a secretary who's recording the minutes, and you simply exchange emails between all of you, and you say, yes, we want to do this, or no, we don't. That's one, I guess, kind of new age way of doing it, since we all use email, or we may not all be in the same place at the same time. Save us a little time.
Generally, how, kind of tying to his point, how easy is it for somebody to go from a sole proprietor to, say, an LLC?
You get the forms, you fill them out. You can, if you have an account with the Secretary of State, there's a site called SOS Direct. If you have an account with them, you can fill out the forms, you can fill them out online, and you can file them right away. You can usually be incorporated within the day.
But it doesn't work as easy going the other way from an LLC.
Well, it does if you've met everything, you did everything you were supposed to do. Pay your taxes, if you have any meetings or anything like that, your attorney can look at that and say, hey, we're in great shape. It's as easy as, the last one that I closed down was, as easy as I called the Secretary of State, the comptroller found out if all taxes were current, all taxes were current. I went to the comptroller's office in Odessa, I got a certificate that said that they were current. I filed that along with my articles of dissolution, and I filed them with the Secretary of State, and I did it in one day. I mean, it's not that hard to actually dissolve, but you have to get certain documents in order. If you're not complying, say, and this is usually the problem I see, taxes. If you're behind on taxes, say you owe some state taxes for some purpose, that's usually the reason that they won't let you dissolve the corporation until you take care of those. Sometimes I tell people, I don't want to get into too many specifics. Sometimes I'll just simply say, well, what's the point of dissolving? You owe these taxes. If you don't pay them, you're gonna be inactive. Are you gonna go back into the same business? If you are gonna go back into the same business, then I recommend that you pay. But when they come to me, they're usually so broke, they can't pay, they can't dissolve, so we'll usually either file, what I do is the bankruptcy. I'll file the business entity. The business entity, corporations, LLC, LLPs, cannot get discharges. They cannot get debts wiped out. The only thing the bankruptcy code does is we'll take all your assets, we'll sell them off, and we'll try to satisfy your creditors. If you're an individual, you can get a discharge. You can go in there, and I'm talking Chapter 7. You can go in there and simply wipe out your debts. If you have excess amount of assets, they'll take those assets, sell them off, and try to pay your creditors. So to answer your question, yes, it's pretty simple if you've met all your formalities. And that's why I'm really big on the format. Make sure that you're staying on top of your business. It's not just, I want to get into a business, I'm an entity, I'm out of here. I don't have to do anything else. I guess it's like a marriage. It's what you do once you're in it that matters. It's not getting into it. we're getting out of it.
When do you recommend to dissolve?
Well, it depends. It really depends on the individual. What is it that you're doing? Have you expanded to the point where you want? Let's say that there's two individuals. Usually, what we're talking about are small companies. 2 or 3 individuals. One decides, you know what? I'd be better off by myself. Then you might simply say, look, I either want to dissolve or I want to, cash in my share and I want out. So you have to make that decision. Another time is, if business is just not working or operating, then you simply dissolve. Some people like to keep their entities open. They've got nothing going on as far as any business activity, but later on they may want to save that name. They have a creative name, they want to keep it, so they keep the entities going. If you want to look up entity names or anything like that, once again, you can go to the Texas Secretary of State website. There's a place where you can actually look up if someone has a particular name that you're looking for. You can even reserve that name if you like for a small fee. And then later on, if you want to get that name or use it for your company, you come up with something very creative. I am great, or who knows. You might be able to get it. I came up with a name, and I wanted to keep it, but it's already being used as a corporate name. But I was able to get, I think it was No Debt Midland, No Debt Odessa, and I wanted to use it for my bankruptcy, because I'd really, in my practice, I'm trying to focus on bankruptcy, either business or consumer bankruptcy. So I have to kind of work toward that. So I've kind of been looking at choosing names and things like that to maybe at some point be able to keep those names every time there's a website or domain names. I try to get them. If for the Secretary of State, I tried to get that name, because as most of you probably know, there's people out there or companies out there that get all these names and then they sell them back to you. So I always try to look, if I come up with something creative, or I have a brother-in-law that's always thinking up names, I always tell him, get them. And then at some point, if somebody really wants it, they'll buy it from you. Yeah.
You mentioned, well, my company's tax accountants, and we've helped people with their LLC paperwork before. You mentioned that if you have an account with the SOS, then you can get incorporated in one day. What does it require to establish an account with SOS?
It's been a while since I got it, but I think all it required, when you go into websites and you have to put in your information, and I think it required like your billing address if you're a business, and I think I had to put my credit card information in there. Once I did that, they gave me a real long password and ID, and I simply go there and whenever I want to dissolve someone, and if somebody has all the required stuff in order, I'll dissolve them. Here recently, I've incorporated a couple of people or a couple of businesses. All I've done is gone on there and I simply file the paperwork. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. Attorneys usually will do it, since most people are usually not in a hurry. They'll say, I can create the company. I'll go to my forms bank, whatever forms I've acquired or accumulated over the years. I'll get the most fanciest looking, corporate forms that I can find. Nice little book. I'll charge you, a nice little fee, and I'll hand you that book and I'll say, I just incorporated you. A lot of people, and I've seen LegalZoom do this, and I tend to think they're a ripoff, because most of this stuff is on. You can go on the website for free and get all this stuff. You can pull up most of this stuff online. Like I said, the Secretary of State is one of the best websites, I think, out there. The IRS website, irs.gov, is also one of the best websites out there. If you need information and you even need the forms, it's all on there. I mean, they're giving it to you. But you go on there, you can file your entity. You have a fee, filing fees, or whatever you may have. But you also can file and dissolve companies. I don't want to diminish what attorneys do or what accountants do or anything like that. I will tell you, sometimes the devil is in the details. Anybody can take a form and fill it out and file it. Whether it's correct, that's a different matter. Whether you're going to follow the formalities, that's another matter. But anybody can do it. If you feel comfortable doing it, I recommend go online and do it. But follow the formalities. It's not just getting in. It's once you get in, what you have to do. That, to me, is the most important part.
Any last